All right, guys, welcome to the INBF Canada show. For this week, we have a Mr. Expert natural bodybuilder, trainer, and strength coach and nutrition expert, Bobby Veleros. Is that correct, Bobby, your last name?
Vlasseros.
Vlasseros.
Yes.
I love it. Where's that origin from?
Greek.
Greek. Okay, great.
Yes.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thanks for the time tonight, Bobby. We're looking forward to diving into you. And just so everyone knows that Bobby actually was the champion for our first INBF Canada Montreal show, our very first year. And he's taking some time off for the year to really grow and get some more size. And he brought some amazing conditioning for your first show last 2 years ago.
Thank
And
you.
been watching your videos on Facebook, and you're lifting some pretty big deadlifts there. I noticed about 4.5 plates there. So some big gains, man. I'm looking forward to digging in with you and understand more about Bobby, who Bobby is, what Bobby's training is like nutrition-wise, and ask all those questions. So first off, Bobby, tell us a bit about yourself.
I wasn't always into bodybuilding. It's something that has developed more and more so over the last few years, but it's really peaked in the last 2 years. And so it all started with just basic training, simply from enjoyment. And then as I started to enjoy it, I think people noticed that very easily. And so they want to know a little bit about that. And so I came to notice that whenever people would ask questions or needed help with anything, I found pleasure in doing so and helping people. And it always made me very happy. And so that's what led me to the personal training industry. And ever since then, it's just been progressive. Strong passion for bodybuilding, the whole mind muscle connection thing. It's amazing, and not planning on stopping anytime soon.
That's
Uh,
awesome, Bobby. So you have a unique training style. Is that correct?
from what I have been told, yes, it is quite unique.
Can you please explain what your training style is? I'm dying to know what you actually are doing here, man. Sounds really good.
Shocking the muscle, shocking the muscle. And so, we come across so many programs online and so many, there's like a controversy on how we should be training. And people think it should be done a certain way and that it's written in stone. But the thing is, the way the body works and the musculature system, it adapts to being shocked and to being stressed. And that could be done in a variety of different ways. And so there's nobody that could tell you to do something a certain way because that may have worked for their body, but if it will work for your body, it will not last long, and things must always varietize, change, and it's really, coming down to the mind-muscle connection and really feeling that you're using every individual muscle to its fullest capacity, and that sometimes is best done with light to moderate weights. And I think sometimes people are a bit surprised by the amount of weight that I may be lifting because it could be significantly lighter than the guy beside me who doesn't have anywhere near the same muscle development as I do. So people may question that and wonder, what is he doing and why are the weights so light sometimes? The exercises I do, form, it's really listening to the body. It's what it comes down to.
I noticed when I was watching your deadlift video just recently, your deadlifts you were doing, and I noticed you were pumping out 8 reps with absolutely crisp and tight form, and your hip extension was absolutely awesome. What was your strategy behind deadlifts and your latest squats? Because I noticed your form is just full range of motion, your technique is impeccable.
Right. So if there's one thing that is extremely important, a very critical component is flexibility. And so, especially as a bodybuilder, when we train the way we do, we tend to get very stiff. And so, I actually focus a lot on stretching, which enables me to use the most range of motion that I can with proper form. And so, I make sure I always stay within that optimal range of motion. I don't go beyond it so that I don't break my form. And so, the squat and the deadlift, they are different movements, but I think people think they are the same movements sometimes. And so when you understand how both are done, you could really start to move your body the way it should. It's also a matter of knowing what parts of the body to recruit and when within the range of motion. So, we have our quads and our glutes that get involved more or less depending on what is going on at the hips, so on and so forth. So it's really understanding the exercises, the form, and the muscle involvement, and then being flexible enough to incorporate and immerse everything together and get things going.
I'm curious because you got me just really curious about these squats now. So do you believe or would you suggest that squats, you called them the king of the movement as far as on your Facebook page recently that I saw your post, and would you say that they're basically catalysts for growth on all areas of your body?
Yes. Yes, they are. It's been scientifically proven that when you are developing and stimulating growth in the legs, being the largest muscle group of the body is forced to start producing more testosterone and anabolic hormones, which does enable the overall growth of the body. Not to mention the fact that the upper body is very much involved in a squat, even during action, not only in growing moments. So we must try to stabilize our upper mid back area with our upper back muscles, the external rotation in our arms to keep the cervical and thoracic spine stable. Our core, of course, is very much involved in there, and of course the entire lower body, every part of it, to one extent or another.
If you could name between the squat, dead, and the bench, how would you label them from first, second, and third as far as importance and quality, and what you would suggest as number one?
Squat, deadlift, then bench press.
Okay,
The
awesome.
reason for that is just because there's so much more going on in a squat. I think a squat is from experience. I think it's more complex than a deadlift. There's more range of motion in the movement as opposed to a deadlift, and there's a lot more mobility work involved in a squat. So I just think that it would, I would start with the squat, then the deadlift, and then the bench press. Just because the bench press, why I place that as number three is because it's not as functional of a movement. It's not a movement that we use as often as opposed to a squat and a deadlift. And once you master the squat and the deadlift, that movement gets embedded into your mind, and you start to incorporate that movement throughout the day when we're bending down several times a day or sitting down and so on and so forth. So for that reason, squat for me is number one, most functional exercise that exists. Once you understand it more and more, you realize that deadlift and then bench press.
So how do you train, Bobby? Like, give us an idea of your periodized program, or do you believe in periodization, or do you believe in shocking your body, or how is it laid out for you?
The only periodizing that I do is that I take some time off after a certain amount of time. And when I know that I need that time off is when I start to feel discouraged
Hmm.
a little bit to train. For me, right away, that's a red alert. When you start to feel any discouragement for your workouts, something must be done because that's the worst thing that can happen. And so for me, it's important that I'm always just as motivated. So that's one thing. The other thing is I may feel overtrained, and so I might start to ache in certain areas of my body. I might start to, it might seem as if I get stiff more easily. So when all of these things start to take place simultaneously, for me, that's time to take some time off from the gym, in which case for me, 5 days has been optimal. Anything less, I don't get that soreness response with my body when I reintroduce the training. But five usually works well. Anything more than that, you're risking taking too much time off, losing perhaps a little bit of muscle mass, and it might be difficult when you reintroduce the training. So for me personally, 5 days works quite well. In terms of periodizing, that's the only way that I do it. Otherwise, with my training, I mean, it's all about shocking, like I said. I don't lift heavy unless I am bench pressing, squatting, or deadlifting. And then perhaps bent over dumbbell rows for my back. So I'm working both individual arms. I'm still supporting my body with one arm, standing on both legs. So I'm not bent over. I prefer to get the core involved a little bit, but I want to handle good weight. But other than those exercises, I am not lifting heavy.
Interesting. So when it comes to your current training right now, what are you doing?
In terms of training, I mean, I'm trying to build as much muscle mass as possible. I mean, my training needs to be as intense as possible. I've actually recently changed the way I do things, and my body did respond. And I know that just because I analyze it every day, all day. And I've
Okay.
had other people who are also have a very good eye on physiques who have told me my body has changed. And so anything that's done different with your body, the body will respond very well with. And so I'm a big fan of what we call drop sets, which is when we work, we do our working set until failure, and then we decrease the poundages immediately as quick as possible. And we continue to add additional repetitions, so we make sure we beat down all the muscle fibers. And another intensity technique I'm very fond of are supersets, especially with the back. The back needs to be attacked from many different angles, and there are many different muscles to individually work on the back. The back workouts can last quite long, so you want to make sure you could work the entire back and not be lingering around in the gym too long. And so that's always good for hormonal response when you're quick, efficient, intense, and then you leave and recover. So that's how I train.
Awesome. Can you give us your age, Bob, if you don't mind asking your age?
I am currently 26 years old.
26. How much do you weigh?
The last time I checked, I was approximately 187 pounds.
And what were you when you were at your contest?
161.1.
Point one. Down to the dial. So
Yes.
I want to ask you, when you were competing at that time 2 years ago to where you are right now, what has changed in your training? What philosophies have you incorporated differently in that time frame?
Right, so I have certainly developed a lot more power. And what I mean by power is described by rate of force production. So how fast the body can move, how quick can you move an object from point A to point B. So in other words, our range of motion. And so that is developed through a certain speed that you use with your repetitions, but that is even more so developed with the proper exercises, such as the squats, deadlifts, and bench presses. And so when you develop this power and the speed of movement with these exercises, when your whole body is involved, then you could implement that power into all of your other exercises. So I'm not saying to lift heavy with all of your other exercises. You may want to lift moderate weight, but at least that moderate weight will be handled with optimal speed, strong contractions, and you're able to bang out more repetitions than you were able to do before. And so the power aspect must always be involved and must also be in the process of being developed when you're training. Power needs to be there. So that's one thing that has definitely changed. Aside from that, intensity. Always trying to find ways of just further and further increasing intensity. Always.
I remember you telling me when I saw you at the show afterwards, 2 years after, it says, Matt, I want to, your upper body is very developed. Like, you have an incredible upper body. And you mentioned, I want to improve my legs, right? You mentioned that to me. So what have you done to really, work on those legs? And I haven't seen your legs in a year and a half, so I have no idea what they look like. But I'm really curious to see what the gains have been and what you've done to further that process along.
I am also very curious of what I've done with my legs, and I'm only going to find out truly once my body fat percentage is competition low. So, but they have changed quite a bit. It's all about knowing where specifically your legs lack the development. Although overall development is always essential, there are many different parts to the legs that need to be developed. We have our hamstrings, we have the inside, outside of the hamstrings, we have overall thickness, we have the quadriceps, we have the inside of the quadriceps where a lot of people seem to lack development. So it's all a matter of knowing what exercises can help us work those specific areas. And then we just modulate our training routine so that we prioritize on those areas and bang out those areas. Once you've established your routine and your exercises, and once you've felt how to work those areas of your legs, you set the routine and you just give it your all on those exercises.
Love it. What about cardio? Are you doing cardio right now?
With my leg workouts. My leg workouts are cardio. Aside from that, I don't do cardio. No, once in a while I work on the recliner bike, which is a 90-degree seated position where we pedal against a certain amount of resistance, and I always go with interval cardio, high intensity interval training. So I will implement that sometimes. But aside from that, my cardio does truly get worked during my leg workouts, during my back workouts. Unfortunately, not so much with my other muscle groups, but it's enough to keep me going until I reintroduce the cardio during competition prep.
I love it. Can I put you on? I want to put you on the spot for a second here, Bobby. I want to ask you a question about my training and see what you can give me for some suggestions.
Sure.
Cool. So I want to improve arms and chest. What would you suggest for me for that?
Arms and chest. Okay, so arms.
I want to hear it, man.
Arms. There is nothing like doing what we call antagonist supersetting.
Okay.
And what antagonists are is we always have a muscle that is being stretched when one is being contracted. And so the best way to train your arms is in a superset fashion when we superset the bicep and the tricep muscle groups. And so you would do a set of perhaps barbell curls and then immediately go on to your tricep extensions or close grip bench presses to work your triceps. And so it's very efficient and you're going to work your arms more than you've ever worked them. The pump is going to be overwhelming and the workout lasts no longer than 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes of your time. The arms are complete and you could, the advantage to that is if there are other small muscle groups you must improve on, you have time to expend to those muscle groups. But for arms, that's the best way to do it. And again, I usually go more for the lighter lifts, lighter weights for the arms. I'll start fairly heavy, but then I continue light. I really like to get the full range of motion and the strong contraction with each repetition. I have noticed that personally arms respond well to that kind of training.
Hmm.
So that's how I would recommend training with the arms. Pectorals, it's form, and people don't realize that many times when they're training their pectoral muscles, they have a problem with their shoulders. The shoulders are constantly elevating like so, and little do they know that the pectorals are not being engaged nearly as well as they can, than as if you were to actually depress your shoulders back and down and keep your elbows close to your chest and push from the chest and not out from the shoulders. And so I mean, the exercises I will use are not out of the ordinary. You're going to see every other individual do the same exercises as I will, but I will apply more intensity. I will apply my shocking principles, so my drop sets and supersets, but I will use form and technique and make sure I am engaging my pectorals as best as possible. The other important thing is to always make sure you prioritize inclined movements because that's where many people lack development in their pectorals.
Hmm.
And this is what really brings everything together in the upper body from the front of the shoulder up in the middle of the chest. And it's what really enables us, as you can see with Franco Columbu, amazing pectoral separation when we are undergoing pectoral contraction. We have the lines crossing through, and that is obtained through prioritizing incline and then your flat movements. Don't bother with decline. It's a waste of time
Yeah.
unless you're doing dips. I like to do dips where I'm leaned forward, so I wear heavy chains around my neck, and it helps me hit the lower pectorals. So we don't want to waste time with decline movements, decline pressing, because they are worked flat positioned as well, and that's that. You can do much more than that to develop your pectorals.
Let me ask you. So, what are your two favorite movements for the biceps, the triceps, and the pectorals?
So my two favorite for each of those muscle groups.
Correct.
So for the pectorals, I would say incline bench press,
Okay.
and I am currently going through a phase with the dips that I mentioned. So I'm body weight dips, where I'm curling my legs and back of my body, providing a forward tilt, which enables me to hit the lower pectorals with the chains around the neck, so a further forward tilt. But I would debate between those and dumbbell flies.
Okay.
Because dumbbell flies, you really get a fantastic stretch in the pectorals, a very good isolation, and you can really feel the pectorals open up a way that you cannot do in any other pectoral exercise. And so for me, the dumbbell flies have always been a must within the pectoral routine.
So, incline and dumbbell flies.
Yes.
Okay, great. What about biceps and triceps?
So for biceps, I'm currently really enjoying a standing alternated dumbbell curl. And so what I do is obviously keeping the elbow in to isolate the bicep. I come to the top and I externally rotate my hand far out to work the inside of my bicep.
Yep.
And so this is a good exercise because when you come to failure and you're trying to be stable standing, you could easily use momentum with your body to force additional repetitions only when stable repetitions come to failure. And so that works out well for me. And then I like to go to your basic standing barbell curls.
Okay.
And I use a close grip, so that helps me work the outside of my biceps. So it ends up being a very good routine to work overall bicep development. And for me, again, like I said, it's beyond that point. It comes down to form, technique, and intensity.
Awesome. And triceps?
So for triceps, kickbacks.
Okay.
Kickbacks, bent over on a bench, tricep kickbacks. So for those who are not familiar with that exercise, It simply looks like so, leaning on a bench. You could YouTube it if you want. It's a very, very specific movement. It should not be done heavy because you're trying to hold your arm parallel to the ground. You're trying to extend back with your entire arm at a parallel to the ground position. And what many people don't realize is that the way they hold the dumbbell needs to be resting down on the hand so that you're really pushing up against the gravity and working the tricep to its fullest capacity rather than gripping a dumbbell in your hand like so. So hard to explain, but if you guys can visualize that, it really helps bring out the long head, which is in back of the arm, and it's a very effective exercise to develop that part of your triceps. I'm currently having fun with that one, and a close grip bench press.
Okay.
Close
Close
grip
grip
bench
mean
press.
like this or in like how are your hands positioned for that, Bobby?
So the best way is when you really want to work your triceps, you want to make sure you're able to rotate your elbows in
Mm-hmm.
and have the elbows close to your body and not allow your arms to internally rotate where the elbows fly out to the sides.
Got it.
And so arms parallel to one another works very, very well because anything closer to that, you limit your range of motion from the forearms touching the sides of the pectorals, flaring out the elbows. So you really want to try and keep it parallel, arms parallel to one another, and just drop all the way down and come straight up. And the arm should always remain in a completely vertical positioning.
Awesome. Let's dive into nutrition now. I'm kind of curious on how you eat and kind of your current program for that, Bobby. So what right now is your caloric ranges, or what do you believe is the proper eating balance or macro balance for building muscle?
All right, so carbohydrates need to be present. That should be your calories should be consisting more from carbohydrates than any of the other macronutrients, carbohydrate, protein, or fat. And the reason for that is because your muscles can contain a lot of glycogen, what we obtain from carbohydrates. And when you're building muscle, your muscles can contain more and more glycogen. So we must make sure we're getting all that glycogen for optimal energy levels. That's what we're running on when we're training, especially the way bodybuilders train, explosive, low duration exertion. Um, Not lasting too long is what I mean to say when you do a set. So carbohydrates should be high. You want to make sure you're getting your carbohydrate sources from the right ones. And so when I say carbohydrates, my personal favorites are brown rice, sweet potato, oatmeal, and I don't really eat more than that. For post-workout carbohydrates, I go with the white stuff. So I go with white rice or white potatoes. And I have alternatives for when I run out of those carbohydrate sources, like a quick and easy accessible carb, such as white bread or rice cakes. I don't eat more carbs than that. Those are the only carbohydrates that I eat. The reason for that is because they're very nutritious, first of all. Second of all, they provide stable blood sugar. I'm referring to the brown rice and the sweet potatoes. So you could consume a lot of these, but your blood sugar remains fairly stable. You're not spiking your insulin too high. And again, you're providing your body a lot of nutrients with these carbohydrate sources. As for protein, protein needs to be fairly high, but not higher than carbohydrates because our body can only handle and use a certain amount. So I have been really paying close attention to the amounts of these nutrients that I'm taking in. And I've noticed that I've recently increased my protein. So we take in a certain amount, but we realize that by increasing it, your body may actually respond quite well. And so protein needs to be fairly high, carbohydrates really high, fats are definitely involved, but not quite as much as the other two nutrients because we need optimal testosterone levels, and they do provide other benefits. When you're trying to build muscle mass and you're eating clean, you need a lot of all these foods, all of them, a lot of them. You're training hard, you're intense, and you're not scoffing down insulin boosting foods where you're spiking your insulin levels so your body can take it. Your body will know what to do with it when you are training intense frequently and just maintaining a clean eating diet.
Love it. So what would you say is not like for you right now? You're 186 pounds, correct?
About 187, maybe 188 at this point.
Okay. So right now, what are your macros at for protein, carbs, and fats?
So I don't know the specific amounts. My carbohydrate intake is very, very high. It would be considered high. I consume carbohydrates with every single meal except my last one, which is when I consume right before bed. And my body has remained lean. I mean, my body's remained lean. I've never looked overweight or fat, regardless of how many carbohydrates I'm taking in. And I feel fantastic throughout the day. I'm a personal trainer, so mental energy is extremely important and is required, and I always have an abundance of it. And so I'm taking a lot of carbohydrates. My protein, again, is a little bit higher now. So I'm consuming protein with every single meal,
Hmm.
and I have fats with some of my meals as well. And yeah, it's not much more than that. Fairly simple.
What do you take for supplementation at all?
Supplementation. So, first of all, the question that's often asked is, do supplements work and is it important? How do we know it works? Don't question yourself too often with those questions because you're not going to have faith in them. You're not going to be consistent and religiously take them, and you'll never know if it works or not. My approach is to not even question it. And if your coach tells you, for example, okay, take these supplements, just take them. Take them, keep taking them religiously. And I mean, my supplementation consists of a lot of amino acids. I am a strong believer in BCAA.
Yeah.
So I consume approximately 33 grams of BCAA intra workout, which is quite a bit. Most people take one scoop. My BCAA formula requires me to take about 4 scoops during my workouts. I use leucine post-workout, very anabolic amino acid. I use glutamine, and for performance, I am using creatine and beta-alanine. And of course, my omega-3s and a very small dose of multivitamin is always involved in the concoction of supplements. And like I said, when you're training really hard, really well, and you put your body in a state where it needs recovery, where it needs that extra push, then the supplements will help and they will work. But if you're in the gym and you know your capacity is here, but you're pushing down here and you're taking days off left and right, the supplements are useless. You have to really make sure your body needs them, and then they work.
So why so many BCAs?
There's a man called Charles Poliquin, whom many people know, and he was the one that had actually suggested taking the magical number, I quote, is 30 to 40 grams of BCAA. So I don't usually like to start applying something from merely hearing someone say it. So my older brother was also very into bodybuilding, and he tried that dose out. He experimented with it at a certain point and found it worked out well for him. And so for me, that was more of a motive or more of a motivation to try it out because I know that it did in fact work for somebody else.
Hmm.
And so I started to try it out, and it seems to work. It seems to work. I mean, you know, with the nutrition and the BCAA intake, my body is filling out. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you're growing and you're developing, I mean, everything's working. Don't question it. And so, you know, when you're training really intensively, you want to make sure you can get what needs to be done within the right time frame. And you want to make sure your body has ample amounts of amino acids, branch chain amino acids, to preserve muscle mass. So you want to be as intense as possible, train the body as hard as possible, but have everything it needs to always avoid breaking down muscle tissue during your workouts. And for me, bring on the BCAAs, take it all in, and just protect the muscle.
That's fantastic, Bobby. So what about your water and food intake? Are you pretty big believer in like a lot of water, or do you take levels of water?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. The reason for that is because the body, when you are so used to being well hydrated and drinking, for example, 4 to 6, 7 liters a day, if something were to arise that makes it difficult for you to drink water, you forget your water bottle, you can't buy one, your schedule just kind of sets you off from being able to consume water,
Hmm.
you will feel the difference. When you've gone from drinking this much to none, my mental and even physical energy does decrease, sometimes even significantly.
Mm,
And
mm.
from something as simple as picking up a bottle of water and chugging it right down, I will get an immediate boost of energy, especially mental energy. I literally feel my body and my mind wake up. And so, to me, I would consider it a source of energy because, again, you have to go from being well hydrated to dehydrated to really see what the difference is, because the average individual does not drink nearly as much water as they should. And so they don't know what that feeling is like of being hydrated or dehydrated. They're used to the dehydration or semi hydration. And so, what I recommend to everybody is to up your water, buy your water bottle, and start really hydrating your body, and then see what happens when you're no longer able to drink that water. And then you tell me if it's important or not.
Awesome. Now, why do you choose to be a natural athlete or bodybuilder? Because obviously, you've been drug free all your life, and why do you choose that route?
Where to begin? Where to begin? I'm
Big
not,
question.
I mean, the main reason that I'm not for it is just because for me, it's, science has proven that the body builds muscle when you're not even training. This is my coach who told me this. You don't need to be lifting weights and you will experience muscle growth to a certain extent or another. And so for me, your body and mind, more your mind and you as a person, will be missing out on changes, spiritual changes, character changes, and so on and so forth when you have an easier route. So if you want to climb a mountain and you climb it on your own, you will grow from that endeavor and from that challenge. But if you have a helicopter, fly up halfway, drop you up there, and then climb up the remaining altitude, you don't get that change and that experience of what the body and mind must go through. This is what changes us in life, not just with training, but with anything. When we have to overcome a challenge, we change. And so, as a natural athlete, we do have to work harder to build more muscle. That is the truth. Doesn't matter what people say, we have to work harder. And so, we change as people. We do. And it just looks better. It does look better because sometimes, unfortunately, the body seems to develop unproportionately when guys are using anabolic steroids, and they have the excessive development in the neck and the shoulders,
Mm.
and there are side effects that I think we've all heard of, and it's not appealing to the eye. And I think that a natural development is more and more easy to see and identify when we work within this training industry and with bodies, and it's just appealing to the eye. It looks good. And like I said, it changes you as a person, during the journey along your way there.
Love that, Bobby. Well, I want to before we kind of end this amazing interview. You've been jam packed full of information. I'm actually like loving this. What I've already learned from it, you've been teaching. So I really appreciate that, Bobby. Do you
No
want to
problem.
add anything more in this interview as far as things you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah, if anybody is even contemplating getting into training, especially bodybuilding, do it. Do it because there's one thing that I find is more unique than anything about being a bodybuilder or even a personal trainer. It's that we deal with bodies, and our world consists of billions of people in which have different careers, amazing careers, life-changing people, doctors, lawyers, psychologists, the list goes on and on. But all these different people have bodies, and when they're done their day, as their career hat, and they take that hat off and they're home, they they have their body to deal with. At the end of the day, they see their body, they feel their body, and sometimes they're not feeling as good as they should. And so when you are successful in bodybuilding and developing that physique and the mentality along the way, and as a personal trainer dealing with bodies, you could change your life. You could improve your life in whatever career or whatever lifestyle that may be. It's the most amazing experience, and I don't regret any second of it. I've had tough workouts, lack of sleep, perhaps putting social life aside sometimes. People judge you, you're boring, na 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 na. But you learn how to have a good time without needing to consume alcohol, feeling good, looking good, living well, and it's the best experience in the world. We have one short life, and for me personally, it's a very important way to live it. Healthy, feeling good, looking good, and just being overall very, very happy and inspiring other people. There's no better way of doing it.
Love it, Bobby. Where can they find you at?
Sorry?
Where can they find you? Where can people find you at?
I work at Gold's Gym Prestige,
Yep.
Zisthout, and I work often. That I commit myself completely to that job just because it's an awesome environment, a lot of good people there, and so I work as a trainer there, and so I could be found there. That I could also be found on Facebook. My name is Bobby Vlasseros. I also have my fitness page, Bobby Vlasseros Coach, and so that my page I use it simply to have people join me on my journey. See people could have more insight on how I train and sometimes what I do with my nutrition. And I'm all about just really showing people how to do things right. And once people see that it works for me, hopefully they could replicate that for themselves and hopefully revolutionize training and natural bodybuilding and take people away from the wrong stuff and put them into the right stuff. And that's what it's all about.
Awesome, Bobby. Well, there you guys have it, Mr. Bobby Veleros, right?
Vlasseros.
Oh my gosh, that's
It's
three
okay.
times. I got to get that right, buddy. Well, I'm just gonna call you Big Bobby. So there you go. Big
That
Bobby's
works.
in the house. The expert natural bodybuilder from Gold's Gym D30 in Brossard, Quebec. Go check Bobby out or find him on Facebook and Instagram.
Instagram as well, yes.
Fantastic. Go check Bobby out there, guys. We want to honestly thank you, Bobby, very much for your time today. That was very appreciate that. You did an awesome job and all the questions and awesome wisdom you shared with us as well.
Thank you as well for your time.
Thank you, Bobby. You have yourself an awesome night, guys. And check it. Yeah, this guy's actually on YouTube and Facebook, guys. We're watching tonight, guys. Thank you very much.